Howdy, howdy, howdy! Welcome to the first ever Norcal Malibraux ramblings. I know it's been a while since I've done a battle report, and the honest truth is I played a single game of Malifaux in the month of January. And maybe I can't remember if that last battle report was actually the end of December. But I did not get much Malifauing in, which is disappointing. I have done a little bit of painting, but the fact of the matter is I've been traveling a lot for work up and down the West Coast. Probably not the best time with the coronavirus, uh, hitting the world. So if I die of the plague, well, I'm going to blame the man for that, and this will be my legacy. Also, just from a hobby wise, I did travel up to Wisconsin and played in an AOS tournament. It was the last Wagpaka, and in Warhammer Fantasy, which I used to play a lot of, that was one of my favorite tournaments. I don't play AOS generally, but there's just a ton of good people, a lot of fun, and so I dusted off some models, borrowed some models, put not a crew, an army together, and went up there and played AOS. It was more just a social, gotta play an individual I never played, who I love. Met a new person, new individual who I'm looking forward to seeing at Adepticon, um, and tipping some more beers back. So it was a fantastic time. But it's not my game. So we're back to Malifaux. Uh, Now I did get a game in last week. It was against a new member to the group, Dave. He is a relatively inexperienced Malifaux player, and while I took a lot of shots, it just it wasn't a good game. It's not a good one. Me pushing around an inexperienced player who's trying to grapple with his own rules, much less has no idea what my crew does and got you a little, just doesn't make for a good battle report. So I thought I'd take a different tact and talk about couple different subjects, but use the game itself to bring up some interesting topics in the conversations that we had after the game. So before I get into that, the individual I did play owns a company called nerdkungfu.com. He doesn't know this, but I'm going to put a shout out, and I will link in the show notes his website. As far as t-shirts and especially nerd shirts and posters and things. He's got a great site to pick that up. We actually played in his warehouse this last game, and so I may adopt him as my sponsor, even though I get absolutely nothing out of it. Maybe I can get a beer out of him or a promo code and future videos. I'll talk to him about that. But go to a site. I'm actually probably going to I need to update some of my nerd shirts, and after this, I'll probably sign on and buy a couple from him. So when I first got into Malifaux, there was a podcast called Before We Begin, which was really interesting. It would generate some strats and schemes, declare their factions, and then each of the people on the podcast would talk about what crew they would hire and why. And so I thought I would uh, take that format here, even though it's already happened. We did talk about why we hired our crews, and so uh, I'm going to call this the Before We Begin uh, uh, portion of the podcast. So we generated, it was corrupted idols, search the ruins, standard deployment, deliver the message, power ritual, assassinate, and claim jump. Just to show off the table a little bit. So, sometimes I'm starting to get into taking a look at the table before I hire a crew. We got a lot of throw terrain, um, standard. This is we got some hazardous. You've seen most of this terrain before in the way I play it. Severe dense in the flats. We've got and concealing, I should say, and then the stones up there are cover in dents as well. Some walls. Um, the terrain would factor in a lot, and I will show a couple photos about it. The terrain would factor in into the results of this particular engagement. So I went with Sandeep, um, and actually a pretty large crew for myself. Oddly enough, I would have 10 models on the board. I think that's the largest crew I've ever hired as far as just pure models. So obviously I had Sandeep and Banasuva, 2 Soulstones, Kandara, help with the card cycle and generation. Metal Golem, as I like to start with the Golem on the board to put pressure right away. A Metal Gammon, um, help put a scrap marker up forward. Oxfordian Mage. He's got, oh, I should say, my opponent declared Rezzers and then declared Make Morning. So Oxfordian Mage has got some limited condition removal. I would call it defensive condition removal in a pretty good bubble. And so I thought he was a pretty good hire. He could sit back and shoot, as well as some healing, which is always good in Corrupted Idols. The Arcanist Crutch, no apologies there. So I went Fire Gammon. I know the last couple of Sandeep, I was trying the Ice Golem out. He's just too slow. Just too slow. So Fire Gammon with the idea that I can get a Fire Golem out pretty quickly. Arcane Effigy for condition removal, both offensive and defensive. And then a Steam Arachnid. I had a couple points, did that. Idea being he can run up a side of the board, preferably the side of the board that doesn't have a lot of the action. If a Corrupted Idol marker pops out, as it ended up doing about midway through, he can deal with that. Otherwise, he's dropping markers for Search the Ruins. You know what? Why else? A lot of this was I was definitely going to go for Search. It's a pretty easy one with this list. Other than that, I like Sandeep just for summons to move the Corrupted Idols. So here's my opponent's list. Dr. McMorning with the Whisper, Zombie Chihuahua, nothing big there. Sebastian Rafkin. Then he took Yin, Grave Spirit's Touch, and that was just an interesting choice on his part, and I'll get into why he chose that. The Nurse, Flesh Construct, and Restless Spirit. So my opponent's got a very well painted Flesh Construct. It was one of his favorite models when he was dabbling in M2E, so he went right in there again. I'm not sure it's a great choice, to be honest, but not a bad choice. Yin. So my opponent thought that he could cover the Corrupted Idol. So his thought process there would be he'd move up, he'd push the Corrupted Idol marker forward, and then he would move forward and sit on the Corrupted Idol, so I couldn't deal with it without killing Yin. The issue there is twofold in my mind. Is A, that works for one Corrupted Idol, and then he's sitting there guarding it, and then two, well, under GG's 0, you can't do that. They're impassable terrain nowadays. So I guess the Grave Spirit Touch is for the regen, so it allows him to push it 2 inches, and then that was his thought. Clearly he couldn't do that, so he was already behind the 8 ball on his strategy. I'm not sure what the Restless Spirit did in his list. I have to go back and ask him about that. I just didn't see what that play was about. So I ended up taking Search the Ruins, as I mentioned. I ended up taking Deliver the Message. A message, I should say. Figuring McMorning's tough to kill. He's got a lot of healing. He's going to be in my face, so easy to get the first point. I'm going to hopefully out-activate him. He doesn't have a lot of summoning. I know he can summon a Canine Remains, but there's not necessarily a lot of corpse markers coming down, at least not in my crew. And so I should be able to out-activate him at the end of the game and get him pinned and hopefully get the second point. Thought about Assassinate, but I just don't, because he'd be coming into me. I just Wasn't going to risk it with how tough McMorning can be. Claim jump is one of my favorite. Thought about that one. Just didn't feel like I had a good model to pull that one off in this particular crew. Well, let me rephrase that. The Arcanist Crutch is always great to do that. I could have done that. In fact, that's probably what I should have taken, and pretty much could have scored both those points, I think, pretty easily against his crew. He would end up taking Search the Ruins as well, and Assassinate. So I don't have a problem with Assassinate. Getting to Sandeep and killing him, he folds pretty easily if you can get to him. Even though he is in the backline master, and you do have to get to him, which is why I don't like his particular choices in his crew. I'll get into that later in this particular video, but yeah, it's not a bad choice. Search the Ruins, I think he would struggle. This is, he's got to get his Corrupted Idols across. He's going to have to get, over onto my side. I don't think he's got enough models to get it done. So I probably would have gone Claim Jump with somebody, and just, with him being uber aggressive, he could have tried to push me off of the center. In general, I'm a pretty defensive, reactive player anyways, so I know Colonel tends to take advantage of that, knowing me. So I think Claim Jump would have been a better pick for his crew. I just don't see him with enough AP to get Search the Ruins off, at least twice. So a couple of, since I took some shots, I'm going to include it. So as you can see, I set up here. My opponent's also in the center as well. Not a bad pick with Corrupted Idols this way. Whichever way it pops, you can react. I did have one little mistake. I should have had Sandeep a little bit closer to Bonasuva. Reasoning is he's just outside the inch for when I want to toss him later, so I'd have to waste an AP moving over. You'll see that there's a gap between the Fire Gammon and Kandara there. The Arcane Effigy would go into that spot there. I'd forgotten to deploy him before I took the picture. And then, I've got the spider way off to the right. Just he's going to make a run up the flank there. Again, the entire game would end up getting funneled into the middle of this, which then made it very tough to get to his hand deep because I was just throwing bodies up to almost wall it off. He just didn't have the mobility other than Yin, who can fly over the buildings, to get through that. If he goes the other way, I'd have time to react. So these two buildings ended up being a pretty big funnel that I was able to wall off and still get what I needed done. So as you can see, I eventually, this is actually still first turn, and I've already got a Fire Gammon out. My metal, I'm sorry, not a Fire Gammon, I'm a Fire Golem. You can see me placing a Shockwave marker there. It just would be so good. He would literally just sit in that flame pillar there and just shoot markers. He's pretty clumped up. I was getting multiple models constantly, getting burning out, getting damage out. I think it's a move 13 or 14 dual, 2 burning, 2 damage. It's such a good Shockwave. So much better than McMorning's crew, which I believe are Shockwave 1, Poison 2. And, versus mine is Shockwave 2, I believe in, and 2 damage, 2 flaming. It's just such a better Shockwave. He couldn't make a Shockwave. Guys, Shockwaves are good. I don't care what people say. Some people, I think, poo-poo them. I think they're just really good. They drain hands. They put out area damage, and put a lot of pressure on the opponent. So I only show this one here to show that I did get a nice golem out as well. So I ended up with all 3 golems. The metal golem died beginning of turn 2. With precise McMorning just diced him. So I threw him up there, got him in there, did a bunch of damage, killed the flesh construct, damaged a bunch of other models with the ride the rails or walk the line, whatever ability that is. But this is turn 5. Kind of the end after it took McMorning a lot to bust through. You can see the Oxfordian Mage is dead by this point. The Arcane Effigy is dead by this point. He just doesn't have enough, between Soulstones and I guess he can ignore Shielded, but I got enough wounds that I was able to take a couple shots from him by the time he got through. Then I had fun and beat on McMorning with the golem there. You could see the fire golem had kind of moved to the center just to mess with things. I think he even pushed Corrupted Idols. I've got a win gaming out, so I'm doing just fine. But again, hey, I got all 3 golems out. It was fun. The ignores friendly fire so he can get Dr. McMorning locked in, but that exorcism, target must have a summon upgrade attached. Target is killed. Not, discard a soulstone or discard a card, otherwise killed, just killed. And against Sandeep, where the golems retain one of those summon upgrades, just hit it. Just hit it with a 6. 6 of crows. Gonna need the crow. He is a henchman, so can stone for the crow. So it would be worthwhile to take down like the fire golem. I would spend a stone to do that. Or you save the crow in your hand. That's just an efficient way to take down my models. This is something that he should have taken. He is right now, as probably as we speak, or you're watching this, painting up his Vincent St. Clair. And so I wanted to get in the next slide because this started me thinking about, there's a lot of masters that do summon upgrades. So let's examine that. Nope. I thought I had some technical difficulties, but it looks like I had not. So the jury, another guild, seems to be stacked with anti-summoning tech. Actually kind of speaks to why I want to give guild a try. Their masters are a little lackluster, but it just seems like they have a lot more tech choices. If you're going to tech against your opponent within their faction, or the ability to, maybe they're all just these martial, and I'm thinking summoners and buried models and stuff. But we'll see as I start playing them and exploring that faction. So, looking at Dave's crew, what keeping the tenor and Dr. McMorning, what could he, perhaps in knowing what Sandeep does nowadays and the scheme pool we had, what could he have chosen differently? So obviously Dr. McMorning, Zombie Chihuahua, Sebastian. As I said, Vincent St. Clair. I think that's an easy choice to counter Sandeep's summoning. He's just very, very good. Nurse, she does her things. Archie, so if you're going to go for an assassinate, I think also leaping and corrupted idols is good. He's now available to do a different angle of attack. So while McMorning drives up the middle there, as he did, got a little pinched and putting pressure in the front, Archie's got the ability to come around and be a big, heavy hitter, get to Sandeep and do some damage, or can jump around and push some corrupted idols markers, so on. So then the last, 11, 12 points, I went with Rafkin. I don't know enough about Rezzers, on what I would take, but Rafkin, that's what what Dave took to get his poison engine going. So do the same thing, and then the canine remains just the same way I did my little 3-point spider. Just have them out on the flank. A cheap model that could push a corrupted idols if it's somewhere, or get on the other side if he wants to stick to search the ruins and just start dropping markers, etc., etc. It seemed like that. Other options could have been Manos. So now you have two leaping heavy hitters. They can start outside the bubble, spread out a little bit more, come in, with two different angles of attacks, can cover more ground to get to a corrupted idol, etc., etc. Another option would have been Mortimer instead of Rafkin, is where he can drop a dig up a corpse marker to get Sebastian summoning canine remains. Start getting more models out there, more AP to get what he wants done. I think in this particular case, either of those would have been fine. And then, I would have stuck with Assassinate and just put pressure on Sandeep. You want him dead anyways. And, have Clem jump on Sebastian and have him waltz in a little later in the game. In the case of, if you have Rafkin, that's probably who, since he's going to sit back and throw vials of poison. He's another option for the claim jump. Kind of like Sebastian, just for the henchman and being able to stone at the end of the game. So, let me know. Those rezzers, please comment on if you were to take a Dr. McMorning and know you were facing Sandeep and that scheme pool, what kind of builds would you do? I'd love to hear. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this format. I'm gonna probably do this whenever I don't have a game to talk about, and something interests me. Maybe I'll generate a Stratton scheme and approach it either from a guild or a Arcanist perspective. I do have a couple other ideas for tech choice segments. Again, I got to come up with a better name. I still haven't come up with a close. Someone help me out here. But anyways, I hope you enjoy this, and see you next time.